Hey, welcome to Life in the Leadership Lane. I'm your host, Bruce Waller, where I'm getting to talk to leaders that are making a difference in the workplace and in our community. What did they do to get started? And what are they doing to stay there? And today I'm excited because this is episode 50, celebrating 50 episodes. And we're going to celebrate the 50th episode with, well, I like to say the world's greatest dietitian. Of course, I'm a little biased here, but we're going to talk to Allison Rezentes. She is an MS, an RD, an LD. She works for Lonestar Bariatrics, and she is my daughter. Hey, Allison, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, man, I'm so excited because of course, I get to talk to my daughter, but we're going to talk about something that I think that is a very hot topic right now in the workplace, and that is health and wellness. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that today, because I know you are an expert in that field. And I think you'll be able to give us some great tips. We're also going to talk a little bit about leadership and more. And so what I'd like to do first is I'd love for you to just share kind of a brief highlight of Lonestar and how do you serve your customers?
Sure. So we are a bariatric surgeon's office. So we do weight loss surgery. We do other body contouring procedures as well, but it's mainly weight loss surgery. And so what a lot of people don't realize is that insurance covers weight loss surgery. There are some parameters that you have to meet, but we try to help those people get healthier, essentially.
Oh man, what a meaningful profession. And I can't wait to get into this conversation. I always like to start though with where it all started. And I know a lot about your story.
Sure.
I know your story, of course, but I want you to share the Allison Rezentes story. I would love for you to share, where did you grow up and how in the world did you get into your career in nutrition?
Sure. So I grew up in Lake Dallas, obviously, you know that. And so I had gone to a junior college for the first year, just didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I was enrolled, I think, in 4 different classes at the time. And I remember I was doing excellent in 3 of them, but one of them I was not doing so well in. And that was my intro to nutrition. It was really science-based, and but it was really the only class I wanted to go to. And so I was already really interested in health and wellness. And so then once I found kind of the science behind it, I started really investing more energy into that and never looked back.
Wow. I didn't realize that. I thought, and so for
I did pass the class.
And for me, I think back, a lot of people that I talk to, they talk about how they didn't think about the career. They didn't really choose the career. A lot of people, whether they're in HR or they're in marketing, they kind of found it. But for me, as I watched you and I've watched you, it seems like you've always known what you've wanted to do. Why is that?
I think mainly it came from an interest myself in to be healthier and with exercising. And then that led to, incorporating, food into it. And so then kind of learning that that's, 80% of being healthy is what you're eating. And I think you may get into this later, but I think that just the interest in nutrition and being healthy overall, that ended up leading me to bariatrics. And I had no interest in bariatrics from the get-go. And so it's kind of interesting where, we land, because that was definitely not where I thought I would, what part of nutrition. I thought I would be in corporate wellness and trying to help, people just, with their exercise and losing 5 to 10 pounds, not 50 to 150 pounds.
Yeah.
So,
oh man.
Yeah.
And no, I think that's great. I always like to ask though, that you were on that path. You really said, oh, okay, I'm very interested in this. I want to do, you got through school, of course, Texas Tech, guns up for all you Red Raiders out there. But once you get into that and now into bariatrics, was there a moment when you said, I really love what I'm doing? Was there a moment, or were there several moments, or tell me about that?
Yeah, I
I
think.
mean, and you're still in your, you're an early career
Mhm.
professional.
Yeah, I think that there was an initial moment. I was doing an internship, and so we have to do several different aspects of nutrition. And I had gone to Weightwise Bariatric Program in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I just shadowed the dietitian there, and it really gave me goosebumps because I saw this person just so excited and full of life during their journey because they had never been healthy before. They had never lost the amount of weight that they needed to be able to keep up with their kids or do X, Y, and Z. And so for me, I think that solidified this is where I need to be. And then I think aha moments happen for me every week. And that's super rewarding what I do. I see people that come in that are at their breaking point. They have tried every diet on the face of the earth and they can lose the weight, but they have a difficult time keeping it off. They're depressed, discouraged, just needing help. And so what we do there is we really come in with, we're here to help you. We want to be your partner in this journey. And so it's just interesting to see people go from that end of the spectrum to the complete opposite end. We see, I have a bodybuilder patient right now. We have a lot of marathon runners. It's just giving them that kind of that second life. And so I think in my career, I get to experience that every week, and that's really rewarding for us.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. Well, let's talk leadership. I mean, you're in a
Okay.
leadership role
in
your company. And I was wondering, 2020 was a heavy year, heavy, especially in healthcare.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, first of all, let's just take a quick peek back and say, were there any silver linings that really came out of 2020 that you've been able to take into 2021?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. I think that what the COVID pandemic did for us, well, it did a lot of things for my industry specifically. So one, it allowed us a second to be out of the clinic. Obviously, I was still doing my nutrition consults, but it allowed us to go through and look at all of those patients that didn't move forward through the process and kind of understand, well, why did they decide not to have surgery, or are they still needing help with something? And I'd like to tell a quick story. I have a patient right now. She actually just sent me an email this morning. So it's funny that this is on this day. And she had come in and she had a lot of trauma in her life. And again, like I said before, very down and discouraged, and her insurance didn't cover it. Well, her insurance covered it, but the employer's plan had an exclusion on the policy, so they didn't cover it. So she was down and out, and she did some nutrition counseling with me, and she was losing weight, but we just really couldn't get a good momentum, right? The light was so far at the end of the tunnel. And so during COVID, one of the things that I tried to focus on, apart from my nutrition consults, was reaching out to those patients, saying, hey, we're here if you need us. If you need, dietitian visits, if we can get you reset up in the process, we can re-verify your insurance. And that's a time consuming thing, but some from year to year, some employers cover it and some don't. Right. And so her in particular, we re-verified her insurance and they covered it. She lost 150 pounds in 6 months.
What? Oh my goodness. How did that feel?
She is a ray of sunshine every time I see her. She emails me before and after pictures every couple of weeks. So I think, to answer your question, I think what COVID did, one thing is it allowed us to kind of sit back for a second and go back to all of those people. Because, with our clinic, we're seeing people as they're in office and we're taking care of their needs. But, just like with anything, people fade into the background or decide they don't want to have surgery, and it's totally their choice. But we just want people to know that, we're here to help. And, it's just like her, all these years, she didn't have coverage and now she does. So that was super rewarding and insightful thing to see during COVID. Oh,
that's a great story. I appreciate you sharing that. Wow. What a rewarding time for your company.
Yeah.
And so, well, I was wondering, and I would call that, whenever you talk about it's a good time to reset. I'm
Mhm.
hearing the word reset a
Yeah.
lot, and that's it. So I'm wondering, the audience for Life in the Leadership Lane are business leaders, HR leaders, people in mobility. And I was wondering if you could share maybe some, I don't know. I mean, we're now in the end of Q1, getting ready to start Q2 as this podcast airs on, it's April now.
Yeah.
What are some things people can do to like get that? You used the word momentum earlier. I love that. To get that momentum, what are some tips people can do to get that start by not only for themselves, but also to help their teams get better on the health and wellness?
Sure. I think one of the biggest pitfalls that a lot of people kind of fall into is trying to change everything in one day. So those are fad diets, right? So I'm going to cut all my fast food out. I'm going to cut all my carbohydrates out. I'm going to cut all my sodas out, which, are all great things to do. But I think you have to start small. So maybe encouraging your employees with, we're going to try to implement a reward for people that can be consistent with their fluid intake and trying to drink 8 glasses of water a day. I think the biggest thing for individuals to kind of get recharged, spring cleaning, clean out your pantry, get rid of all of the junk, start fresh. If you don't want to, don't throw it away, donate it to, shelter or whatnot, but start fresh. But I think the biggest tool that people can utilize is a food journal. I think that makes people the most aware of what they're consuming, how many calories, even if you don't even know what your targets are, it just makes you aware.
The food journal. I love that. I have a lot of journals, but I don't have a food journal. I will tell you a funny story. Whenever you went off to school at Texas Tech and then you would come home, I remember you would purge me and your mom's pantry.
Still
get
do.
all that.
Still do if I can.
And you still do it. I love how you also talked about starting small. A lot of people, it's very, I don't know, it's exercising, it's, getting in shape. It's trying to do all of these things at once and use I like that because it's simple.
Yeah.
Starting small. And then of course a food journal. Absolutely love that. Well, you also shared a quote speaking of a journal, in mile markers. And that quote was, being healthy requires focus on all aspects of health, including mental and physical, for optimal results. Talk a little bit about that quote and what you meant by that.
Yeah. So I think, obviously behaviors are very mental. And I tell my patients day in and day out that I can put you on a diet, but I'm not focused on the diet right now. You've done that in the past. I'm focused on eating behaviors. How can we change the behavior? Because we tie food into everything, relationships, celebrating things, what are we going to eat for dinner? That's always the topic of conversation. And so I think you have to be in the right mindset going into it. And you have to just look at food for what it is. Some foods break down into sugar and some don't. And if you eat a lot of those foods that break down into sugar, you have to exercise a lot more to be able to see the results that you want to see. So I think you just have to get in a good mindset. And I think that that's with anything. Exercising, I try to look at exercising as, okay, it's 30 minutes in a 24-hour day. There are a lot of days I don't want to exercise, but I just do it.
I'll raise my hand also. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So I think you have to be in the mental, the right frame of mind going into making lifestyle changes.
Yeah. I like what you said there. And I think that a lot of times it's, we have to, of course, I like to use the term, find your lane. You have to find what works best for you.
Oh, yeah.
Your husband likes to exercise early in the morning, right? And I see you in the morning getting your son and daughter up and getting ready. And then, but as soon as you get home, you're like, hey, I got to get my workout in, right? Because you know the importance of that.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one thing we all need to recognize too, is that it may not be the same for everyone as long as you're doing that, right?
Right.
I read I read a book called The Automatic Millionaire, and really it came down to around the term automate. And I was thinking about how I'm trying to figure out, like what you're talking about. I think sounds, it sounds good,
Yeah, sure.
but it's not easy, right?
Oh,
It's
no.
incredibly hard. Are there some things like even you, do to like automate that? I was in the book, it talked about how, like for our 401k,
Mhm.
instead of getting paid and then writing a check and then sending the check to the investment firm, it's taken out of our check. It's automated, right? Or
Mhm.
automatic deposited, and it seems like when we're able to automate things into our day, it's easier to do that. Is there something that people can do to, like, I don't know, automate or,
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have set days,
okay,
and if I get an extra day in of, specifically with exercising, I think diet's a little bit different. I think with diet, I have to sit down at the same time every week, plan out my meals. I like to be sitting at the table. I like to, plan out my meals first, build my grocery list based off of that. I mean, I try to be strategic in that. I think with exercising, I block myself out for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday,
okay,
because I know that Wednesdays and Fridays are the days we see patients, and I might get home late. I might be tired. But I always tell myself I'm just going to do 3 days a week. And if I miss a Monday, I try to make it up over the weekend, but just trying to have that set schedule versus just saying, especially when I like work from home, just saying, oh, well, I can get it at any time. No, I need to stick to the same time, because if I get out of that routine, it's very easy to get off track. And that's what happens, I think, for a lot of people. But I also set parameters for myself. I'm not going to do longer than a 30-minute workout,
mm,
because I'm not going to, yes, while I might want to, I'm not going to miss time with my kids. I'm not going to miss that dinner meal. I'm not going to miss X, Y, and Z. And so that helps me be consistent, because I know halfway through it, there's only 15 more minutes. And so that helps me to kind of push past
a
it.
little
But I
bit.
mean, that's what we do. We look at the treadmill and look how much time has gone by or how much time is left. And, um, there's never a minute that's slower than when you're on the treadmill.
I like what you brought up there too, because you said, hey, I put some parameters around it.
Yeah,
Like when we exercise in the morning, we will just set like a 30-minute timer or a
sure.
25-minute timer, sometimes a 20-minute timer. And that way we kind of know, hey, we're going to be here for this
Yeah.
long and then we'll be done. But you've mentioned something that I want to touch on, and that is, you don't want to miss dinner with your family. So what about these working parents? Let me just tell you,
That's me.
during COVID, I have more empathy now for working parents than ever, because
Yeah.
I have had a front row seat to
Mhm.
watching you and your husband and your children. And then of course, your mom,
Yeah.
who's been, watching the kids during, when they were supposed to be in daycare.
Mhm. Mhm.
And man, that's hard. What about the working parents of the world? Like finding time, like I mean, is it the same for working parents as it is for non-working parents?
Yeah, I think so. I think for, specifically for health, you have to set a routine. I mean, even if your kids go to school and you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a housewife, I think you still have to set that routine, because everyone has the same amount of time, in their day. Now you might
Mm,
have a little bit more flexibility with it.
yeah.
But I think you also have to look at what is important to you. What are your health
Mm,
goals? If your health goal is to lose a certain amount of weight, okay, well, you can set deadlines for that, right? But if it's being healthier overall, improving your cholesterol or, your blood sugars, leveling those out, I think you have to set a routine, and that's what's important. And there have been many, 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 many times where I have had my Beachbody DVD going, my kids in their high chair, my husband's running late, and I end up drinking a protein shake for dinner. But we make sacrifices, so that I can have confetti birthday cake for my son's fourth birthday that just happened. I think it's all, I really don't enjoy the, you know everything in moderation approach, because I think that some people can do that and some people can't. But I think you do have to balance things like that out in order to see long-term results.
I want to talk about goals, but before I do that, I want to talk about failure. Because I think that I have a love-hate relationship with failure.
Sure.
I absolutely hate failing, but I love it because I get better. What do you say to people that say, okay, I'm gonna really get focused. I'm gonna set some goals. I'm gonna put some parameters around what I eat, how I exercise, how I live every day. But yet, day two, they fail. And, they're like, oh man, I got to start. What do you say about failure?
Yeah, so I think that, and obviously that happens a lot in my profession, just as a dietitian in general, not necessarily with the type of patients that we see, but I think you're human and you're going to fail, and it's natural to fail. And the thing that you have to remember is that you are human and you're not perfect, and you're just trying to become better. So, as far as someone falling off track with their diet or their exercise regimen, okay, today's a new day. Start doing your food journal again. Let's get that back out for accountability. Like I had a patient this morning that told me that she had pancakes for breakfast. Well, okay, because her family was in town. Lunch was a healthy meal. Dinner was a healthy meal. She's like, oh, I know I shouldn't have eaten those. And I said, hey, listen, you made good choices the rest of the day. You're not going to gain weight by having something that you enjoy every now and then if it's not a healthy option. So I think what you just have to remember is that the goal is not to be perfect, but it's to be better. And if you can focus on that, then, just take, like I said earlier, you just take baby steps to get to that point. You can't do it all in one night because you didn't create all of those behaviors and habits in one night.
I love that. I think Vince Lombardi once said that you can't be perfect, but if you chase perfection, you might become excellence, right around that. So, oh man, that is so good, because I think that a lot of people can relate to, I want to do better. I hit these little roadblocks along the way. What do you say to people that do that? Would you ever recommend like a coach, or
oh yeah,
where are some like resources that people typically will go to look to for that? And by the way, you mentioned a food journal. Since we're talking about resources, do you write it down, or do you use an app, or talk a little bit about resources?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because I get that often. What's the best food journal? What should I use? And so myself personally, I like a handheld food journal. I'm very visual. And so writing things down makes me cringe if I eat something that's, less desirable. My husband is the opposite. I had him once write a food journal, and at the end of each week, I'd have him highlight anytime he ate something that was less desirable or, not healthy, because he had a goal set in mind. And so that works for me. Well, I saw a lot of highlighted items, like a lot. And so it didn't work for him. It wasn't something that it was like jumping out on the paper. But what works for him is tracking his calories in an electronic food journal, because he adds them as he eats them. So like MyFitnessPal is a good food journal. A lot of patients use one called Lose It. That's a good one. There's water journals to help people drink water. Like there's one called Waterlogged. There is a hydrate water bottle that alerts you every time to drink to help you to increase your fluids. There's also, psychologists that work with patients specifically on eating. But I think the biggest thing, we talked about exercise a lot. I think the biggest thing is like even when you don't have time for the exercise, you still have to eat. Everyone has to eat to be able to live. And so I think you just focus on that, because that's going to be 80% of your health, as it is. And so there are a lot of tools and resources out there. Really, you could even get on the FDA website, USDA, and kind of give you some healthy tips and tricks. Now with the internet at our disposal, there's a lot of healthy recipes, low carb recipes, low calorie recipes that you can find. But I would definitely utilize, there's a lot of free applications you can use on your phone.
Okay. So one of the questions I want to see, is this a myth, or are there facts around this? Water. drinking enough water. I can tell you, if I go by what I've read about drinking half of your weight, I would fail every single day.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you know me, I'm a Diet Coke guy
Yeah,
or a
sure.
coffee guy. Tell me, what is the importance of drinking enough water?
Sure. Water does a lot of different things for your body. I mean, from helping detoxify to truly helping with the digestive system. And so I think my personal opinion is everyone kind of determines their own hydration status.
Okay.
So what I always tell patients is when you go to the bathroom, you need to see what your urine looks like. If it's concentrated, you need to drink more water. If it's diluted, then you're hydrated enough. So, I think the one size fits all doesn't, because, while someone your exact size, exact age, you may have a different calorie intake than that person, or your kidneys may filter differently, or there's so many different things. So I think you really have to just base it. A good rule of thumb is 4 water bottles a day.
Okay.
Yeah, which is about 60 ounces. So eight cups of water is a good rule of thumb. But I think a lot of people would be waterlogged if they drank half their body weight.
I was just wondering, as I was thinking about the community that, the listeners and the viewers, what about, so Lonestar Bariatrics, do they also provide, and I'm just curious, do they provide like support? Like if, I don't know, an HR leader called and said, hey, we need some support here or resources. Do you also help companies?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest struggles of our work from a leadership standpoint and from the business aspect, I guess I should say, is educating people and educating companies on the best providers. We hear all the time from our patients that they just called their insurance company to see who was in network. And so, I mean, we're in network with every major facility, and it's disheartening that we see a lot of these individuals go to Mexico and have, a cheap surgery because they didn't know their insurance covered it. And so absolutely. So we provide support in multiple different facets.
Okay.
So for the patient, we have a support group that's private. So patients can get on there, they can talk about their experience, they can ask questions. I'm on there just to field for any emergent type questions or something that may be needing to go, specifically to the office, but it's patient led and patient driven. And that's really important because not everyone wants others to know that they've had weight loss surgery or that they're even thinking about having weight loss surgery. And so we really try to do that. But another thing is that the Dr. Carlton and myself, we really try to make our environment open and friendly. A lot of people have been stigmatized for a long time because of their weight. You wouldn't think it, but it's very, very common. And so we want them to come in knowing that, hey, we're here to help. All we see is someone needing help. And so, I think a lot of our patients come in really reluctant and leave really excited. And so that's the kind of support that we want to provide. But we also see them very frequently after surgery. We do consultations with that patient 2 weeks after surgery, 6 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year. I mean, we want to see them frequently because we want to help them get to goal.
I love that. It's not like, okay, we're going to see you before, we're going to talk through the process. Okay, we have the procedure, and then, okay, you're done.
Right.
It's
right.
You take them, you go the whole season with them.
Right. And I mean, there's not every bariatric surgeon's office does that. And so one thing that we do, I mean, we just take great pride in our patient care.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Earlier you talked about, and I want to touch on this. You talked about goals. And I think that's one of the things that I think people in the business community do a pretty good job of that is set goals. Talk a little bit about goals. I mean, did you set goals? Talk a little bit about the importance of that.
I think goal setting is very important. I think I set goals every day. I'm more of I have two journals. I have a journal that kind of my to-do list, which is what I would, say is my goal list.
Okay.
And then I have another journal that's, important items that are goals that need to get done, but not necessarily today. But if I get done with this list, maybe I can work a little bit on this list. But ultimately, at the end of the day, my goal is good patient care. So what that means to me is, if I get an email from a patient, I like to answer it right away. Even if that means literally it's, 1 minute from the time that I received it. I take great pride in people saying, thank you for the prompt response, because I know myself as a patient of a primary care or calling about my kids' doctor's visits, I know how anxious I get waiting to hear back from someone on a test result or, X, Y, and Z. And so I think it's important that the patients know that they're being taken care of. And so that's the biggest goal that I think we want to be available for our patients. We're able to do the service. And so we just want to be there for them.
My goal is good patient care.
Mhm.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so good. Oh man, so good. I told you folks, this is the world's greatest dietitian here. Be sure and take some notes. I love the suggestions you've been giving, and I'm going to put all of those resources in the show notes so people will be able to connect with that. What else should people think about when it comes to, and we talked about the physical side of it, but what about the mental? I want to just touch on this just real quick. I hear a lot about, I don't know, I think we call it mental illness in the workplace. I've heard it called a lot of different things, but the fact is that that's a big topic right now.
Yeah.
And, are you hearing that? And what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say 80% of our patients have some type of anxiety medication, depression medication. I mean, some type of medication that they take. Silver lining, or the beauty of what I do, is we do see a lot of those patients decrease the amount that they take. We see a lot of people kind of see the light, so to speak, once they start feeling better about themselves. I mean, truly, going back to the physical a little bit, we have patients that they want to go in the gym, they want to exercise, but they don't feel confident enough for people to be looking at them to be able to do that. So, one thing that we require of all patients, and insurance requires it, is a psychological evaluation. Okay. And that's not to see if someone is, crazy or needs medication or anything to that point, but so that people are aware of, not only the mentality that you need to have going into something, a major operation, but also, there are going to be things that are sacrificed, right? So when you lose weight, and maybe your best friend that was heavier all of their life too, they might not end up being friends anymore. And so it sounds so petty and high schoolish, but those are real things that happen. And so I think that there's a big focus on mental health after surgery. I've had several patients ask me if they can see someone just for that accountability and strengthening. And so there have been times where I've recommended people journal for specifically their feelings, because there's a lot of emotional eaters, right? And so I think that I think eating is all mental. Yeah. Wow. And so while food tastes good, we have the mental capacity to say, okay, we want this or we want that. But it's not even necessarily about that. It's just about, wellness is about, like I said in the quote before, wellness is about mind, body, and soul. Yeah, for sure. Oh man, that's so good. I will tell you, this has been so good. I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that are like listening right now that are going to say, wow, this has really helped me. I'm going to either A, it's validating what I'm doing, or B, you know what? I may shift a little bit. I may look at things just a little bit differently to help me get either on track or back on track. And I want to finish up this segment right here about, so you lead a team. So do you find yourself leading any differently today than pre-COVID?
Like, are you finding yourself doing anything different as from a team aspect, or is everything, or you're just more aware of different things?
Oh man, I think the second part of that is that I'm more aware of other things. I think COVID was a learning experience for sure. I think it taught us that we can take our practice remotely. We did a lot of telehealth visits because
Nice.
a lot of what we do is not necessarily physical examinations. I mean, yes, after surgery, but it's more of the conversation we're having. We get to know the patient, and while we like being in person, I think that it taught us that we can go remote. I think it taught me as a leader, not everyone is good at being in a remote setting.
Mm.
I am more of, I really like to be a team player. I like to know every job, but I also am the first one to admit when I can't do that particular job. Like, for example, with, when people are scheduling their surgeries and wanting to pay, yeah, I could collect that money, but I always tell patients, you don't want me to you don't want me to touch your money. Trust me, I'll help count it, but that's it. And so, I really kind of, for my leadership, I was never in my goal was never to be a practice manager. That was never my goal setting out. I didn't do business school. I'm a dietitian by trade, but I just really like that serving spirit. And I think, I try to find staff members that have that same spirit too, because we're all there to help people and do a job, right? And so I just want to, everyone to enjoy what they do while they're at work.
So I have to ask you this, just as a young leader, because I remember I'm thinking back on to when I was a leader at your age. Leadership is hard, isn't it?
Oh, it is.
Leadership is hard. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of rewards. You talked about that. But my question to you is it what you thought it would be? Like, or are you finding yourself just continuing to grow and learn from it? And like, what is it to you?
Sure. Yeah. I think it's not what I expected by any means. I'd be the first to admit that. We're a small practice.
Okay.
So we all wear a lot of hats, and I've learned to do things that I never even thought in my life that I would try to research or whatnot. I mean, I think that, management or leadership where I'm at right now is in so many different facets. From, I'm not really a micromanager. I hire people that know how to do the work. And, I just really try to focus on keeping open communication. Because if we keep open communication, there should never be a setback, because we've already communicated that and we're working through it. But I think another thing is that, you have to be, you don't want to be too proud. I think some leaders are afraid to roll their sleeves up and do some of the dirty work. And so, I'll be the first one to sit at the front desk and welcome the patient into being the last one there to, turn off the lights if it's necessary. At the end of the day, we just want, our best referrals word of mouth. And so we just want patients to love their results, feel healthier, and tell their friends about us.
That's fantastic. I'm having Leanne Day on the show next week, and she talked about leadership, and she expressed it as humility, right?
Yeah.
Just like what you're saying, they're not afraid to roll their sleeves up. They're very humble in what they do. And so, no, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
It's quite different, as you're a young leader, you go through these times, you're like, oh man, I'm struggling. And you get through those times, and then you experience, success. And then you look back at young leaders and you I wonder if they have the same thoughts that I did. They just look so natural. For me, from my angle, you look like a natural leader. And I think it's because what you're talking about, you're very open. You're not afraid to roll your sleeves up. And I love that. Oh man, this is so good. I told you the time was going to go by super fast. But I got a couple more things I want to ask you. Okay. The first thing is, leadership is every day. And so I just would like for you to just share, as a young leader, what is something you do every day that helps you stay on track as a leader? Is there anything in particular that you have as a?
I have two things that I do habit wise. I have a wall calendar that I write important dates on. So
Okay.
whether it's the payroll date, and I mean, that really helps me, or, somebody's birthday or holiday. And you think that, oh, those are so little things, but it means a lot to someone when they see that. Right. But really to help me on my day to day, I really use a legal notepad. That's my best friend. I use a legal notepad. Like I write everything down. I'm very visual. And so Dr. Carlton, he jokes all the time that I use too much ink to scratch out one of my to-do items. He said it just takes one little line, but I really like to make sure that people know that I took care of that item.
Oh, that's
so that
fantastic.
helps me. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. The CHRO, Shannon Mosley, shared that she has the sticky notes. She's got sticky notes everywhere. And here's what I say to that. The reason why I ask you to share that is because my point I like to make, and for the listeners listening, is that it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you have a system, something that works for you, and you do it every single day. And that's the key, is being consistent. And I absolutely love that. So last question before we get into it, it's time to accelerate. And the question I love to ask is, have you ever been given any advice that you found was so good? It might have come from a family member. It might come from a friend. It might come from someone at work. What's something you received that was so good that you find yourself sharing that with others?
There's a lot. When I was getting ready for this podcast and just reading over some of the information, I kept thinking about leaders that have affected my life. And really the very first one, I was 19, I was at Texas Tech, and I got a job as an administrative assistant working for a home health care company. And in my interview, she said something along the lines of, we just need a serving heart. And I thought, okay, I can do that. I can do a serving heart. And what she meant was, if we need help with a marketing event one day, we need you to drive over there. If we need you to clean the toilets one day, we need you to do that. Not that, you're being the errand girl, but you're being a servant heart. You're helping us in any way that we need. And that's really taken shape, I think, in a lot of my journey, and really what led me into a leadership role. Because I think that Dr. Carlton just saw that, I was willing to stay there late, even though I needed to go pick up my kids real fast from daycare, because I wanted, and I do want our business to, do exactly what our intentions are, and that's help patients. So I think that really helped to shape and mold me. And then one other one that I think of is Chris Corcoran is a dietitian that I worked with at Weight Wise, and she taught me a lot. She really helped me establish the base of my nutrition career. And in my interview, she said, we can teach you what you need to know. We just need to make sure that the personality fits. And so I thought that was super great, because I was so set on being this, this robot, if you will, and doing my consults and making sure I asked all the questions versus just talking to someone, because we're all just people.
I love that. Oh my gosh. And that's one of the things I always like to talk about too, is mentors. And so you had some really great mentors. They were so great. Here you are sharing their advice that they gave to you that's made you a better leader. Oh man, that is so good. Anybody else, as far as like mentors in your career? I mean, again, you're in your early career stage, but one of the things I do find is that leaders that are really continuing to make impact in the workplace have people that have helped them move through their journey. So anybody else?
I mean, I think my, current leader, Dr. Carlton, has helped me tremendously. He, not a lot of doctors will take time out of their day to describe whether it's, a medical issue or a lab work or help someone in need. But from that to explaining what triple net means, I didn't know what that meant last year. I mean, so, I think that just being open, I think that has drawn me into his type of leadership, and that's been very helpful.
That's so fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is so, because it really, at the end of the day, it's all about surrounding yourself with great people, and you've done a good job of that. And you will continue to surround yourself with great people and continue to grow others. And so, oh man, that is so good. The time has flown by. So we're going to go ahead and move to, it's time to accelerate. So I'd like to ask a few fun questions to kind of wrap up the segment. First question is, book or podcast?
I think the answer is podcast every day.
Definitely fine. All right. And so what kind of podcast do you like to listen to?
I really like true crime podcasts. Yeah, I like listening to a story. It makes my my drive a little bit shorter, and I can actually feel like I'm an adult versus, listening to Peppa Pig in the background at my house.
Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, you know what? I think true crime may be the most popular.
Oh yeah,
right
sure.
now.
It's interesting.
I love it. Okay. What are you grateful for?
I'm really grateful for my family. I'm very blessed. I'm very fortunate. I have 2 little ones, healthy, happy, crazy, and then a very, very caring, thoughtful husband. And so I'm very grateful for my family.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
2020, we talked about how heavy that was.
Yeah.
Here we are in 2021. What are you excited about?
Well, I'm excited about a lot of things, but I think the thing I'm excited about most would just be the idea or concept of becoming more normal again. Being out with friends, having get-togethers, just going to the store. I mean, we're going to have masks for a while, but used to, you'd go into a store and you'd kind of be like, well, should I wear a mask too if that person's wearing a mask? And I don't know, or is that weird? And now it's just like, if a person's not wearing a mask, you're like, where's your mask? It's just the norm. So I'm excited to get back to kind of more of a normalcy.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Love that. What energizes you?
So I feel like I really thrive off of positive feedback. Now I said positive. I don't like negative feedback, but I'll take it. No, so that really energizes me. And so one form of that for us as a company is our Google reviews. So good, bad, ugly, we tell patients to leave a Google review. Yes, for us to know that we're doing a good job, but more importantly, so others can see, 1, what the experience is going to be like. And 2, they can be related with someone, on some platform. For example, there was a patient that came in, and when she would scar, she would get keloids, right? So it's a bigger scar, a really big scar. And so a lot of people will forego procedures because then they're just going to have these massive scars all over their stomach. Well, Dr. Carlton consulted with another doctor, found a way to prevent that from occurring. So we asked that patient, will you write a Google review about that? Because you don't know how many people are not pursuing surgery because they're afraid of the very same thing. And she said, I've put off even going to a consultation for 6 years because of that.
Oh. And
And so for me, that is super enlightening for the next person. And so we just like people to share their journey. And so I would definitely encourage anyone that's listening today, go on there and read our Google reviews, because that's something that we really pride ourselves in. Again, good patient care.
Yeah, one of the things I've tried to do as a practice too is I've tried to create a practice of reviews. Now, it might not be a Google review.
Sure.
Maybe it's a LinkedIn review, or maybe I read a book or gave a book review. But as we're talking about Google reviews, I always share that feedback is a gift, and people want to know what your experience was. And so I want to encourage the listeners too. Yes, go on there and check out the Google reviews. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But find someone that you can pour into. And I tell people all the time that there's nothing better than opening up a LinkedIn recommendation from someone and you're not expecting it, or opening up a Google review with 5 stars. And what that does for that other person, it will move you.
Yeah.
And that's how you can really move people. And so I love that. I'm glad you shared that. Okay. Here's my final question. I love this question. Allison Rezentes, 10 years older.
Okay.
She's knocking at your door. What is she going to tell you?
She's going to tell me a lot of things. One, she's going to make sure that I used a good skincare regimen. That's first and foremost. I know that for sure. But no, she's going to tell me to slow down. She's going to tell me to enjoy the moment, that, these days are short and you'll miss them. She's going to tell me that, if it didn't matter, if it doesn't matter in a year, it shouldn't matter that much today. I wear my heart on my sleeve a lot. And so I think that leadership has toughened that a little bit. But I think, she's going to tell me to slow down and just enjoy the now.
That's a very, very wise Allison, 10 years older. I love that. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It has been like a gift to be able to sit here and have this conversation. I mean, we talk all the time, but to actually have a purposeful conversation about helping people in the workplace has been very, very rewarding for me today. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and perspective. If someone wanted to follow you, how could they connect with you? Are you on LinkedIn?
I am, but I'm not good at it. I think email is the best way to connect with me, honestly. I kind of live by my email. So my email is also another to-do list for me, but I like to have 0 emails in my inbox. So it's the quickest way for me to respond back to someone. I can leave them unread so that I know that I need to respond back to that person. And so that's probably the best way. So Allison@LoneStarBariatrics.com.
Okay,
it's the best way to connect.
Perfect. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. I'll put your company in the show notes if somebody wanted to check out your company and maybe even tap on your shoulder about possible resources to help them through their journey as well. So, thank you so much for being on Life in the Leadership Lane. I absolutely cannot. And by the way, this is like my first live episode since starting. So this has been energizing for me. And so it's been a lot of fun. So I just want to let you know how proud I am of you and how much I love you. And so well done. Keep it going.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.